So this is part 3 of the KhoodeelaarTV television channel, broadcast on Monday, the 24th of October 2022. This is the KhoodeelaarTV television channel being broadcast on the internet, not on satellite or terrestrial or on cable platforms. And this is the platform, the analytical, contextual, ethical and moral platform, banner that we use is Baby Angel Geronimo editions. Baby Angel Geronimo is the witness to the depravity of depraved Boris Johnson, the depravity of the depraved DEFRA in the UK, depravity of the depraved opposition leader, so-called, Keir Starmer, and assorted others, and the depravity of the likes of the son of Nigel Lyre's son, Dominic Ly's son, and the rest of Fleet Street, despite the fact that even the Observer, the Guardian Observer, pretended to be sympathetic to the cause, the Baby Angel Geronimo, correctly, justifiably, was advocating and was being advocated on his behalf. The Guardian Observer melted and completely twisted the actual context and the narrative. So the evil land that Boris Johnson actually created in England is evil because the infrastructure is evil and it's in the control of the Satan. And the majority of the people who are so-called conservative supporters are completely fact-free. They are not factually educated, informed. They are not educated and they are not morally educated, enlightened at all. So this is the place on the face of the earth that is the most corrupt land. And so therefore the coronation of Rishi Sunak that is now being reported as I speak, reported by Fleet Street and other mainstream so-called media from the Western Hemisphere. The coronation is not being recognized as being justifiable because the demand, the universal demand is that the conservative, chronologically, successive holders in the post of Prime Minister, leader of the Conservative Party, come Prime Minister, in that order, have been dysfunctional, dishonest, and have brought nothing but disaster socially and economically to the country. And that, let's say, after the break of the Conservative rule in 1997, when Tony Blair introduced a different version of the Conservative rule in May 1997. So that went on until May 2010. That's 13 years. So after the election, so-called, of May 2010, and the appearance of the crook David Cameron as the leader of the Conservative Party and the Prime Minister, followed by his stupidest act of holding a referendum, Brexit referendum. That caused him to resign in a show of idiotic, tokenistic principle, which meant that he was followed by Theresa May, the woman who introduced the word phrase, the nasty party, in 2002 and 2003, before she formally entered Parliament. And then May was followed by the congenital liar by birth, genetically, congenitally dishonest, depraved, corrupt, a personification of evil, Boris Johnson, who staged the bogus kind of achievement at the 2019 general election in the UK by claiming to have created an overwhelmingly unprecedented majority of members of parliament, conservative members of parliament, 80 plus in the House of Commons. Now, today's events, that is Monday, 24th of October 2022. Today's events have shown that Boris Johnson was more shallow than even I had described him on the record, because I began condemning him in public and writing around 2005 onwards. That he was shallower than the shallowest possible individual, corrupt, ignorant, arrogant, selfish, greedy, very, very, very small-minded moron. And then Liz Truss. For heaven's sake, crass Truss. Liz Truss, crass. So all of these people have been in post as prime minister at the expense of the country. Now, Rishi Sunak is due to enter number 10 Downing Street as soon as the procedural bureaucratic formalities are completed of getting rid of Liz Truss, the lettuce. Now, the response from the small number of the opposition leaning tabloid newspapers, typified on this occasion by the Glasgow Daily Record, has been clear and hostile. And it rejects Rishi Sunak's coronation as the death of democracy. Whereas Sunak is given widespread kind of coverage by the conservative leaning papers, Daily Telegraph, the Daily Mail, the Murdoch scum, the Beaverbrook disgrace Daily Express, etc., and the Yorkshire Post. In the middle of Yorkshire, this is a conservative paper published from Leeds, absolutely conservative, crass, stupid. So all of them are running the introverted, kind of navel-gazing phrase, unite or die, attributed to Rishi Sunak. Now that actually immediately reminds of the first time that Rishi Sunak was installed on the BBC's politics program at midday, fronted by this creepy, crafty woman who has got several kind of side jobs apart from being a presenter of the BBC program. When Sunak was foisted as a Brexiteer in the run-up to the Brexit propaganda, I noticed that he was being completely artificial, absolutely artificial. Although the line about Rishi Sunak now recently has been that he went to one of the public schools. Public means the opposite of what public means generally, ordinarily. This is a private school. Private school where people with too much money send their children. So it's private school, wrongly described as public school. And the schools that are public are kind of starved of essential funding. One of the things that they do engineering, poverty creation on a permanent basis. So the public schools are the otherwise known as the comprehensive school, state sector school, etc., etc. Now, the public schools, that is the likes of Winchester, in this country are wrongly given credit, just like the Oxbridge, Oxford and Cambridge are given credit for being the producers of, sources of talent, craft, intelligence, and all the rest of it. All of this is a pack of lies. Public school, private school, it is not the school that creates the intelligence. It is not the school that creates the character. It is not the brand or label of the school that creates the character or ethics or morality. It is inherent and also inculcated by the people who are teachers of character, with character. Not because they are teachers employed in a particularly, specifically, what is wrongly called prestige school, prestigious school, but because they have character of their own. And the responsible people. Now, when Rishi Sunak was foisted on this BBC politics program midday as a Brexiteer in the run-up to the Brexit election, the Brexit referendum vote, I noticed that he was being very, very, very typically mentally servile, because he didn't come across as a person of independent thought. This is me recalling 6 years, events 6 years ago, observations that I made 6 years ago. I may not have published extensively in the way that I'm doing now, but I did notice that he was being servile. About that time when he was launched, he was decried, he was condemned by, well, the racists in Fleet Street, and some of the comments about him were that he was the obedient servant of his masters and mistresses. Now, they were meaning that he was taking orders from the white kind of script writers and agenda setters and narrative makers in the conservative, the racist Conservative Party. I did not think that that was what was happening. I thought that Sunak was cleverer than he came across. But because he had an ambition to make his kind of mark in the Conservative Party, he was playing half dummy and half kind of intelligent. What that meant was that the case for Brexit that he made came across as shallow. The Brexit was never going to be anything other than shallow, but it was shallow. Now, today's announcement, that is the statement that has been attributed by the Fleet Street papers of Tuesday, based on what he said already during Monday, to the effect that unite or die, comes across as shallow as well. It doesn't come across as if it is his belief. Because the conservatives, only those conservatives, or the Tories as they are called, colloquially, etc., etc., those conservatives who talk about unite or die or lose, that the kind of line that Boris Johnson desperately made before he was forced to pull out of the so-called contest because he was lying, his lies were catching up with him. That is to say, the latest set of lies, which was that he had more than the 100 minimum number of MPs endorsement, which he never did. But the same applies to Penny Mordaunt, who stayed on the course until the very late during Monday. Because Morden said that she had more than 90, or she had 90. And Johnson said he had 102. So the commentators observing this were wondering, openly began to wonder, why is it that all of those numbered MPs are not confirmed this publicly by endorsing the Morden and Johnson? That actually completely fucked up Boris Johnson because he got caught. Because it was true that most of the so-called endorsers remained quiet, shut their mouth, and refused to endorse Boris Johnson publicly. Same applies to Penny Mordaunt. But Penny Mordaunt, because of her different character, is less toxic and less poisonous and less corrupt on all those grounds. But being a conservative and being a Brexiteer meant that Penny Mordaunt came across eventually as not being intellectually in the right place. She came across as contradictory, etc., etc. And she too began to echo the desperate slogan, "Unite the party." Now that what is so shallow about that? Because running the country, the United Kingdom, forming the government, and drawing the billions and billions and billions of public money in the name of running the country is not the private, paternal, or family property of any of these conservative leaders or leading members. This is a highly responsible task that should be done with due compliance with the highest standard of ethics and morality. And due and manifest reference and recognition should be given to the existence of the country, existence of the community of voters, the existence of society. Yet Sunak, in his speech, by highlighting Unite or Die, has already messed up on the day one. So we shall be continuing in that way, in that vein, the commentary and updating commentary and examination of various stages that he has to go through before he is declared a resident, official resident in the number 10 Downing Street. So we are broadcasting on the internet. This is the Khoodeelaar television channel, Khoodeelaar television channel, being broadcast on the internet, not on satellite, not on terrestrial, not on cable network or cable platforms. And this is done under the overarching theme of the baby angel Geronimo, the world's best witness. And there is no better witness, more insincere witness, more reliable witness to the corrupt, depraved Boris Johnson et al. Than the baby angel Geronimo. Baby angel Geronimo is a universal blessing for all who seek justice, fairness, truthfulness, accountability, transparency, compassion, fairness. Baby angel Geronimo witnesses all these activities right across the board 247. Baby angel Geronimo biologically was born in 2017 or thereabouts in New Zealand, and he was raised by a woman called Leonie Walker, who misses him. And when he came to England, his home was a place in South Gloucestershire in southwest England. And his human mom was Helen MacDonald. Now, Helen MacDonald has given such an awful lot of her time and energy and resources in standing by the baby angel Geronimo that cannot be calculated. So she has been defamed by the depraved Defra, as has been the baby angel Geronimo. And so therefore, because the extent and the ferocity of the depravity have been so severe that we have decided to adopt baby angel Geronimo as the world's universal best witness on every occasion when there is a depravity in action in the name of serving the community, serving the animals, serving the environment. Baby angel Geronimo is an angel in the ordinary sense of the term angel as it is understood in all faiths and all faith-based mythologies. But baby angel Geronimo was adopted by so many people across the world during the height of the attacks on him. Many people, we cannot actually give an actual number of the people because we don't know. We have not had any contact with most of the people. But we assume on the basis of statistical extrapolation of the numbers of people who put their names and their thoughts and ideas and concerns online in support of baby angel Geronimo, that so many of those people remain and will remain for the rest of their lives emotionally in states of hurt and pain because of the criminal plots devised against the innocent baby angel Geronimo by the criminal depraved Defra, aided and abetted by the criminal Boris Johnson. So we carry on updating every day on the evidence that is coming out of the depraved morons and criminals going through what they deserve, but they're not going through everything they deserve. Boris Johnson ideally, proportionately, should be prosecuted as a mega criminal. He is the controlling criminal behind a controlling big task of mass defamation of innocent animals. And Christian Middlemas or Middle Miss, the Scotland-based so-called UK chief vet, is a notorious criminal offender who should be persecuted. Sorry, I correct myself. Prosecuted for her crimes, as should all the other individual perpetrators involved in the campaign of harassment, defamation, demonization, and lies they perpetrated against baby angel Geronimo. They should be actually prosecuted. We cannot prosecute unless the state allows the prosecution. We could prosecute, but we cannot be certain that they would let us prosecute Johnson or any of the other criminals. So the next best thing we are doing is to keep awareness active and updated every day. And we send our bestest wishes and prayers to the baby angel Geronimo every time. And we love the baby angel Geronimo as if we raised him. So everything that baby angel Geronimo was kind of subjected to by the liars should come back to Boris Johnson and haunt them, Boris Johnson and all his co-criminals. And in addition to that, other tasks should be given to the liars, Johnson and other crooks, for them to carry out the tasks in the most rigorous, punishing way possible, so that they know or they have a taste of how bad it feels being demonized and being targeted, as they demonized and targeted the baby angel Geronimo. So back to Rishi Sunak and unite or die call by him about the Conservatives. But at him has been thrown the correct and more powerful challenge, which is that he now represents the death of democracy in this country, because there is no election coming. And the earliest election, the earliest date that there can be an election in the United Kingdom is 2 years from now. And in the 2 years, every single day there is losses being inflicted. There are losses being inflicted on people that don't deserve the losses. And the main reason why the crass Liz Truss got trapped in her own stupidities and cruelty and greed and idiocies, the main reason was that she wanted to take away billions worth of resources that belong to the ordinary people by way of cuts on the one hand and reduction of taxes owed by the mega rich. But because there is this kind of inherent built-in mechanism in the even in the corrupt capitalist system, the market capitalist system, if you take too much away from one side, then the other side flips and it becomes dysfunction, it stalls and it disappears, which would have happened had the Bank of England, as the monetary kind of controllers, hadn't intervened. There would have been riots in the streets of the UK because food shortages would come and other ills would arrive linked with the lack of money. So 40, 50, 60, 70 billions and billions and billions of pounds worth of artificial kind of injection of money was effected by the Bank of England, which intervention prevented the complete collapse. Now, the nearest that the UK came to collapse was in 1990, when Margaret Thatcher was in the last kind of days or months of her reign as Prime Minister. And this Oliver let loose, his name is let win, but we call him I call him let loose. Oliver let loose the tiniest of individuals, advised Thatcher at that time in 1990 to introduce the poll tax, because that poll tax would have penalized, absolutely penalized, the already very poor people in this country. And all the arguments, rationality, and reasoning against the poll tax were ignored by Thatcher. That resulted in the first attempt at riots in the Trafalgar Square. And there were street protests, riotous assemblies in Scotland. Such was the instant reaction by the state to the riots in Trafalgar Square that poll tax, in the form and shape that Oliver let loose had devised, was immediately kind of withdrawn. The poll tax is there in different from the council tax and other names, but the severe form in which it was plotted to be foisted was withdrawn and abandoned. Now that was the taste of riots. Now that was in 1990. Now that was 32 years ago. If the Bank of England had not intervened to stop similar riot and loss of cohesion in terms of society, then this country would have collapsed. That is how bad the effect of crass truss policy was. As for the idiot, mental slave, quasi-crazy Kwarteng, I mean, it says the same thing about him. How stupid! Kwarteng was being retailed as a scholar, and his scholarship was being related to, linked to alleged scholarship on the history of economics. Apparently, he did a PhD on the history of economics. The fact that he was given the credit as a kind of mitigation by his apologies on the regime that Truss was still fronting. The fact that they were saying that had no effect, because if indeed Kwarteng had done a PhD on anything, genuine PhD on anything, then he would not have behaved in that kind of false, shallow, stupid way. And so therefore the collapse of the crass regime is a warning, a very serious warning as to how quickly society can unravel because of the bad policies and ignorance and ignorant policies on the part of the ones who are in places of power, decision making. Having said all of that, let's see how Rishi Sunak will deliver. He has said he will deliver accountability and stability. Now, stability cannot happen if there is want and desperate kind of shortage and hardship being felt by the overwhelming majority of the people in the country. Now, when Miriam Margolyes Her second name is spelled Margolis, but I think her second name is pronounced Margolis. Miriam Margolis is stated to be aged 81 years. When she said to Jeremy Hunt, "Fuck off," on meeting him on the Radio 4 program, Today program, she spoke for the whole, quote, nation. On two levels, because Jeremy Hunt had been UK's Secretary of State for Health. That is to say, he was the murderer of many of the financial projects needed to be given to the National Health Service for the National Health Service to function properly. But he actually deprived the National Health Service of the money and the resources. So therefore, as Chancellor, that he has been appointed by Liz Truss, he is being described as a classical, conventional fiscal disciplinarian. And I'm paraphrasing the words spoken by Steve Richards, a non-conservative and almost Labour-supporting, quote, commentator that appeared on the Sky News press preview on Sunday night. Now, Rishi Sunak, of course, has to get going with the delivery of accountability and transparency. But he will not be allowed to deliver accountability and transparency on an honest basis, because the Conservative Party, which is his main kind of area of priority, if you like, to preserve the Conservative Party, is too corrupt, too dysfunctional, too selfish, too jealous, mutually jealous, to suddenly turn itself into an ideal political party. Now, this is an ideal vacuum situation. What happens if Rishi Sunak is forced by the forces of evil that control the Conservative Party to disguise what the Conservatives really want, cut taxes for the rich, and reduce the social aspect of the spending of the country, of the government? Because again, if he does that, if they make him do that, then there will be chaos, there will be riots, and so on. So we shall be talking more about all of that in due course as things happen. Brief comment about Pakistan. Not about Pakistan as it is, but Pakistan in context. Pakistan in context, number one, June 1757 onwards and August 1947 onwards. I said in all my comments about August 1947 that contextually the duties owed to the ordinary people by the leaders of the independence movement from the British Empire, the main individuals, leaders of the campaign for independence from the British, were responsible for creating appropriate atmosphere for the delivery of the promises. And they didn't do that. I remember talking to the late Ian Mikado. Now, Mikado and Peters Swine, I call him, were two MPs for the two constituencies in Tower Hamlets. Now, Peter Swine did show up more often than Mikado did. But Mikado was genuinely almost a socialist in his thoughts. But Mikado, like Jeremy Corbyn, was supported by a lobby that claimed to be a lobby in support of Irish independence or the rights of the Irish people. So Mikado was, he was oozing with praise. When I spoke to him, for some reason, the name Indira Gandhi came up. Well, not Indira Gandhi, Indira Nehru. And Mikado almost lost his balance. Obviously, Mikado was much older than me, and I had not witnessed their kind of time as they were kind of targeting Indira Gandhi, because Indira Gandhi, when she was young, reportedly was sexually quite attractive. And all these Western kind of politicos before August 1947, who claimed to be sympathetic with the demand for the withdrawal of the British Empire, imperialists, kind of made a point of targeting Nehru's daughter. And her name, in the original, I think gives the game away as to what her parents, or at least Nehru, her father, kind of thought about her or thought of her. He gave her the name, the middle name, or the second name, Priyadarshini. Now, Priyadarshini is a Sanskrit-based word which means good-looking woman. So there was a lot of sexual activity or a kind of targeting going on this side. On the other side, Nehru himself was sleeping with Edwina Mountbatten, wife of the Mountbatten, who was Brenda's uncle. So such was the intimacy of the relationship that Mountbatten, who was given a colonial post by the British government over the subcontinent in the run-up to the August 1947 transfer, etc. Mountbatten was compromised, as was Nehru. So therefore, they didn't have real interests of the people, let alone any concern for the delivery of the fruits of independence from the British. So when Pakistan's Imran Khan says, Pakistan ka matlab kya? And then he answers, La ilaha illallah. What does he actually mean? He has not discussed this. What I have been talking about, Imran Khan has not discussed any of it in his dozens of references to the events. He has referred to Muhammad Iqbal and Muhammad Ali Jinnah as his two leaders. Muhammad Iqbal as the leader of ideas and Muhammad Ali Jinnah as his leader of politics, a political leader. And then he goes straight back to the state of Medina, where the Prophet Muhammad, peace be on him, was in place. And Imran Khan has completely left out, all references to the rest of the subcontinent. To him, the huge country of India that is today doesn't matter in the context, except as a negative reference. Now, India as a whole should not be referred to negatively, because it is like Pakistan. It's a country with people with needs, and people whose needs are being ignored by the leaders. So Imran Khan has created, in his mind at least, and in the minds of those people who have been intently following him in the jalsas, in the rallies, a kind of mental block, a darkness about the whole of the subcontinent and about all of the independence movement from the British, except this emotional, excitable slogan, Pakistan ka matlab kya, la ilaha illallah. I mean, that slogan was not even created by the Pakistan Jamaat-e-Islami. If it was created, then it didn't become public. It has been made public by only Imran Khan. Now, when I went to India, today's India that is India after 47, I found all across the country that I actually traveled, huge poverty and exploitation. And in the West Bengal, which is where Mamata Banerjee is now chief minister, West Bengal suffers one of the most hard, persistent poverty that can be found anywhere. And the reason why that is so is because of the failure of the leadership given or controlled or exercised or abused by the Nehru and his cabal for too long. As I said, Nehru was a notorious adulterer and sexually obsessed. Contrast Nehru's character with M.A. Jinnah, who was almost beyond sexual attractions, as even Sarojini Naidu, who was very fond of him personally, found out, because he never had any time for her. So these people betrayed the independence movement. And by murdering M.K. Gandhi, that part of the independence movement narrative was murdered as well. That is what the Brahmins did, the Hindutva movement did. And they effectively did the same thing to Subhash Bose. Now, Subhash Bose and Mahatma Gandhi would have created a balanced environment in the subcontinent. But both of them were cut short. Now, this did no favors to the people of the subcontinent, neither to the people of Pakistan, nor to the people of India. And by Pakistan, I don't mean West Pakistan. I mean East Pakistan, which is what the main Pakistan was and still remains. But Imran Khan doesn't recognize that. Imran Khan has got a lot of catching up, historic, urgent catching up to do. As I said in the previous edition, Imran Khan should stop talking about Switzerland in the terms that he does talk about it. And he must stop talking about the UK in the terms that he does talk about the UK. Because as I've been explaining, exclusively, extensively, originally, UK has no morality in the government, no ethics in government, no rule of law in government, no due process in government. And by government, I include the behavior of the corrupt, racist, criminally operating judiciary at every level. And if you look at the Sun newspaper, it is Sun and Sunday. The Sun and Sunday, and I'm giving the actual spelling, not calling it scum on Sunday. The Sun and Sunday, controlled by Rupert Murdoch, has got an investigative piece about the London Metropolitan Police. Now, Sun and Sunday and the Daily Mail, and the Daily Mail group that is, rushed to condemn the London mayor, Sadiq Khan, when Sadiq Khan reportedly tried to hold to account the Metropolitan Commissioner for so many years, a woman called Cressida Dick. Because the scum, that is Sun and the Daily Mail, and others were aligned with Boris Johnson and his agenda and racism, they didn't even accept, notionally even, didn't accept the possibility that as the incumbent mayor in the name of London, Sadiq Khan had a say on what defects, dysfunctions afflicted the London Metropolitan Police, which is the biggest, numerically biggest police force in the United Kingdom, probably Western Europe. So the judiciary is as corrupt as racist as the police. And the police is more corrupt and more sexist and more racist than people have ever been allowed to find out about. So, for example, the item, the investigative piece in the Sun on Sunday, it contradicts the contents in the headline. The headline in the Sun on Sunday says that rogue officers shame the Met. Now, that is absolutely absurd. It's not rogue officers, because by definition, rogue means only a small number. The essential evidential truth is that the London Metropolitan Police, in the main, has been dysfunctional for decades. And has been racist for decades. And has been sexist for decades. As to why the Metropolitan Police has been allowed to continue with the huge billions and billions of pounds of funding, despite the fact that it has been dysfunctional, it has been racist, and it has been sexist. The answer lies with the dysfunctional political parties, Conservative and Labour. They have not done their job. As we speak now, the Labour Party has not done anything by way of rigorous response to this investigative piece published by the Sun on Sunday, saying that the Metropolitan Police is failing. I shall go off the camera and find the piece so I can read some of the texts for evidence and accuracy. So on 2 pages of the Sun on Sunday, pages 28 and pages 29, most of these 2 pages taken up by that piece that is byline to Michael Hamilton. And it says exclusive by Michael Hamilton. So it says rogue cops who shamed the Matt. Matt is the short word for the Metropolitan Police, not the meteorological organization. So it says the Sun on Sunday reveals more flaws in Britain's number one force. And it has got New Scotland Yard, and then the back of the uniform, 2 uniformed police persons, and the face of this evil Wayne Couzens. Wayne Couzens kidnapped Sarah Everard, imprisoned her, raped her, murdered her, and then burnt her. Now is there any word to condemn that? And this was so-called serving, they say, officer. This is Metropolitan Police officer. Kidnapped Sarah Everard, falsified his kind of role, and put her in his custody, if you like, and then raped her, and then murdered her, and then burnt her. Now imagine, it is not something I'm saying as a wish that it should happen. I'm not saying that at all. To illustrate the point about brainwashing, if Wayne Couzens was a black employee of the police, what would have happened? There would be a real seismic tsunami of public outrage on the streets of England. A tsunami. And all the worst prejudices against black people would be expressed by the protesters. How dare a black man kidnap a blonde, then rape her, then murder her, then burn her? All the fascist racists would have been up in arms. But there was no such protest. What there was silence, silent vigils, dignified, silent vigils by a large number of women. And what did the police do? They harassed these women. They harassed these women, taunted them, and they targeted one of these women for a long time after the events of the silent vigils, and they sent her explicit, pornographic, violent messages. All came from the police. Now, who do the women go to for prosecution, for action? If the police are doing this, it's not a banana republic, and it's not one of the countries beyond the Iron Curtains. It was England, mother of civilization, where it was happening. And Boris Johnson, who was in the post of Prime Minister when Sarah Everard was kidnapped, raped, murdered, and burned by the police employee, police person, did he make any comment? Did he make any comment that could remotely be compared to what he said about Muslim women wearing burqas looking like bank robbers? Johnson did no such thing. He did not condemn Wayne Couzens, nor did Johnson condemn Cressida Dick, the commissioner of the police, under whose watch Wayne Couzens was recruited to the police. Which means that in the process of recruitment, the London Metropolitan Police do not have in place anything that can tell the difference between a potential police safety that uphold the safety of the people, and a potential criminal wearing police uniform. So Johnson didn't say anything about Cressida Dick, nor did anybody else in the government, nor any member of parliament, whatsoever. The woman that the police targeted, I think, was a student from a university in south of England on the silent vigil. Her name is Patsy Stevenson, and she is a woman from Essex, I think. Patsy Stevenson has been harassed, systematically harassed. Now, if a non-police individual had done that, even a white individual, non-police, that that person would have been completely destroyed by the police. And rightly so. Because what Wayne Couzens did to Sarah Everard should never happen to a human being, wherever they are, whatever their identity, background, whatever. It was the worst suffering that any human being could be put through. And no human being should be put through that. And yet, Cressida Dick was still in place and was not being condemned, not being held to account, not being asked by the government to explain herself. Now, in the loosely kind of organized so-called settlement between the London mayor and the UK government and the police, there is this token arrangement that says that the incumbent mayor post holder would be the actual head of the London police, what is called the Metropolitan Police Authority, not the police force, but it is called, in that form, it is called the Metropolitan Police Authority. And so long as he is in place, bar an election or other legitimate ouster, the mayor, in this case Sadiq Khan, was the London Metropolitan Police Authority, or the chief of that authority. And in that position, Sadiq Khan had every right and every duty to subject Cressida Dick to the highest standard of rigorous questioning. But Sadiq Khan did no such thing. He merely asked Cressida Dick a number of questions to explain what was happening. And he was then targeted by the Sun and the Daily Mail and the Telegraph and all the others, the conservatives, including the crew around the depraved Boris Johnson, who rushed to condemn Sadiq Khan over his questioning of Cressida Dick, as if he was the one who was doing the wrong things. He was not doing any wrong thing. He was only doing 1% of the 100% duty he had to do to hold the police accountable to the public of London and to the highest standards that are absolutely essential in the behavior of the police. So he was condemned. Now that was months ago. And here, months later, the stupid fucking Sun admits that the police are in worse form of behavior than Sadiq Khan ever described them. Now here is the summary of some of the things that this Michael Hamilton exclusively reveals. And these are 12 policemen or policewomen facing trial for sex offenses. This is long after Wayne Couzens kidnapped and raped and murdered and burned Sarah Everard. One police has faced 11 misconduct charges and is still in the police. 1,800 police have kept their jobs after misconduct charges. So it's not like I'm saying it or any other outside person is saying it. It is the Sun which is part and parcel, integral part and parcel of the propaganda machine that the London Metropolitan Police has been operating. And then it says this heading, rogue cops who shame the Met. Now that is a contradictory thing, because if there are thousands of police committing offenses, thousands of sex offenses being committed by the police, then it follows that it is not correct to say that these rogue officers alone are shaming the force. The correct phrase and statement should be that the force is disgraced. Force is in a disgraced state of dysfunction and it should be scrapped by the sheer weight, under the sheer weight of the evidence. There is no demand made in the Sun or by the Times, which has also been publishing critical reports about the police being corrupt and dysfunctional, nor even by the Guardian. Now the Guardian prides itself as being different from the other newspapers morally and ethically, but it hasn't. So as I said about the report that Polly Toynbee, the comment that she filed after visiting Clerkenwell and Shoreditch County Court, the Guardian's morality is very wishy-washy. It doesn't have any bite. It hasn't got any rigor. So, for example, when she went to that court and witnessed what was happening to people who had been called to the court over their housing, the situation, and they were facing eviction notices, she described the judge as a kind judge on the day, and she described the shelter outfit, that is a charitable organization, as the rescuer, the savior of these hapless people who according to the description, the collective description used by Polly Toynbee, were a collection of dummies. She took away their humanity, she took away their individuality, she took away their awareness and consciousness, and she denuded them of their identity. That is how bad the Guardian is. And you extrapolate statistically that kind of behavior by one columnist, and you can see across the board all the other issues, the Guardian is getting it wrong every single time. As I said many times during the years that Corbyn was in post as leader of the Labour Party, Corbyn is intellectually very limited, and Corbyn is politically even more limited. But his over-exaggerated fan club keeps saying that Corbyn would have made the best prime minister. Well, that is a fantasy, because Corbyn cannot and could not answer on his feet While he was opposition leader and Cameron was still in post as prime minister, during the question time, Cameron would routinely, regularly, brazenly ridicule, mock, and personally attack Corbyn. Now, anyone watching the spectacle could see that. And yet Corbyn never managed to answer. Never managed to answer. So therefore, the Labour Party has been dysfunctional when it comes to the police. The Labour Party has been dysfunctional when it comes to the corrupt, racist, sexist judiciary, and so on. So when Sunak is coronated and actually installed as prime minister after the few loose ends are tied and Liz Truss is ousted permanently, the opposition that Keir Starmer is kind of fronting will not match the demand that the situation has upon him to deliver a rigorous opposition. So this is the edition that is just over an hour long, and the time is now 21 hours GMT on Monday, the 24th of October 2022. This is the month 18 years ago, on the 22nd of October 2004, K. Jordan and I jointly led the first rally. And we held it in the Greater Haque Street against the Crossrail hole. Now on Monday, the so-called Elizabeth line was kind of formally launched, and people were shown by the BBC as praising it in many ways. Let's say that the fact that the Crossrail line was conceived at all shows that other than people like me, political campaigners in this country don't exist. There are literally thousands and thousands of left-wing socialists, etc., etc. But there is a difference between what they do and what I do. The campaign, Khoodeelaar campaign, stopped the plot to dig a hole in Brick Lane that was going to definitively destroy the area forever. Now, there is a similar thing going on now, which is the HS2. HS2 has been given hundreds of billions of pounds for no reason. And I'm not going to go item by item about HS2 in this particular edition, except to say that unlike me, when we did the Khoodeelaar campaign, the main resource came from me. Not the money, but the knowledge and the morality and the ethics and so on, with which we beat all the government law officers and their arguments and the House of Commons and House of Lords Crossrail Committee and their members, etc., etc. So it wasn't like we had any fundraising. We never raised funds. But we daily maintain 247 ethical, factual attacks on the dysfunction and dysfunctioning program and corrupt program of Crossrail project and the Crossrail whole plot against Brick Lane, London E1 area. What we did without the money would have been possible by others if they had access to millions of pounds, literally millions of pounds. Now, I give an example. The people who have been opposing HS2 along the lines from Euston in London to Birmingham have included not one, not two, not three, not four, several local councils, several hundred councillors, several members of parliament, to say only a number of kind of post holders and ranks and levels. There are ordinary people whose homes are being affected. And there are billions and billions of plants being destroyed. And these people have gone to the High Court, gone to the courts. The people supposedly opposing the HS2 plot have gone to the courts, High Court in London, not once, but dozens of times. And they've hired all kinds of professional licensed law traders, including the type that David Panic typifies. So they have allocated millions of pounds to the legal costs, as they say grandly. But they have failed. All the fuckers have failed. And that is the comparison that should be made to what the Khoodeelaar campaign did. We didn't have the money, and we didn't kind of secretly seek money from anyone for the campaign. But we steadfastly, rigorously, every day, round the clock, examined, diagnosed the flaws and defects of the Crossrail plot at every stage. And we put the Crossrail promoters at every level, locally, centrally, and in the media, on the defensive. The fuckers had no time to come round to answering the questions and the challenges. Some fuckers actually put their names under a pseudonym. They use pseudonyms, false names, and put personally taunting posts aimed at me. That didn't work because I knew exactly who they were. I'm not naming them here, but I know who they were. A limited number of criminals. They were jealous, nothing to do with the quality of society or community or transport or environment or anything. They are simply jealous by the sheer activism and dynamism and rigor of the Khoodeelaar campaign against the central government, local government, regional government, etc., etc., etc. Now, how is it that the opponents of the HS2 are failing pathetically? One answer, in the context of the Khoodeelaar campaign, is that our banner statement includes HS2 as one of the things that we actually oppose about our profile. It says HS2. And in the last few years, we have actually communicated by the social posts various advice and various ideas to those fuckers who claim to be opposed to HS2 as to how to stop the HS2. But because they're fucking racists, they think that they cannot take advice from somebody called Muhammad Haque. These fuckers are condemned forever. They will never be forgiven by the posterity, by future generations for the betrayal. So HS2, I'm rephrasing and recapping, can be stopped by doing exactly what we did to the townless councillors. HS2 is supported by a number of Conservative MPs and even Labour MPs on the Quad and Labour councillors individually. The way to stop them being councillors and being members of parliament is the way to stop HS2. Because the one thing that they actually care about is their career, the spot as MP or councillor. As Karen Brady, I'm not a fan of Karen Brady, but her name is used in the Scum on Sundays for a column. That column says that the Conservative Party could not be united by Liz Truss. But the only way, the only thing that would unite them would be the fear of losing their posts, losing their careers. That is absolutely spot on. But she's saying it, and we have been doing it for 18 years, 19 years now. We focused on the townless councillors. And we said, fuck you, you scum. We are not going to let you sleep in peace as councillors, while the community in whose name you operate is being targeted by Crossrail. As Michael Crook confessed, he would wake up early in the morning and go to the town hall, and he would want to know from the staff what Muhammad Haque was up to on that day against him. And Muhammad Haque left him with lots and lots and lots of things to do. And we stopped them because they were the ones who were colluding with the Crossrail promoters, the City of London and the central government, UK. And we left no doubt that if they didn't push for complete halt to the proposed hole in Brick Lane, they would not be councillors for long, etc., etc. And it worked because we convinced them with street activities, demonstrations, and so on, that their betrayal of the community's right to be defended and protected by them would not go unnoticed, and they will suffer, they will pay in the highest kind of way that hurt them. Most of the local councillors that we targeted were Bangladeshis as well. Can you see the irony of it? Contrary to what Richard Morey thought, ethnicity in our context does not equate forgiving wrongdoing because somebody is of the same ethnic background or identity or claim. We are the biggest critics of ethnic crooks. So, we targeted the Bangladeshi origin councillors, not because they're Bangladeshi origin, But that is the fact that they are Bangladeshi origin. But the reason why we actually targeted them was because they were betraying the constituents, the voters in the council wards. And it became quite clear, literally quite clear, that whenever any of these councillors saw any Khoodeelaar campaign supporter in the street, they would do their best to avoid coming face to face with the Khoodeelaar campaign supporters. That was the awareness we had created in them, that they had to account for their treachery, their cowardice, their selfishness, and their stupidity and their greed. And the name Khoodeelaar became an electoral asset, not to us, because we didn't create the Khoodeelaar campaign for a career. Our purpose was bigger and remains bigger than a little career. We wanted to defend the community. And we could only defend the community by defeating the attackers of the community. And among the attackers of the community, we listed these councillors, along with Crossrail, along with the Greater London Assembly, along with the husband of Christian Gilbert, who was the minister concerned with Crossrail. And what we did, concentrated the minds of these petty ones, and some of them sometimes were so desperate that they went home in states of utter drunkenness, because they spent the time in the brick lane in the evening, and they drank and they drank and they drank, and they were very desperate about losing their council position. That is on one side. The other side is when the council election took place in 2006, many candidates, including the Lib Dems, falsified the evidence and claimed to the voters at the door that they supported the Khoodeelaar campaign, which they didn't. But for votes, they knew that if they said that they were supporters of the Khoodeelaar campaign, they would get votes, which is what happened. Quite a few got elected by claiming, quite falsely, that they were Khoodeelaar campaign supporters against Crossrail. That was the solid environment that we had created. It is historic. It never happened. It never happened in the East End of London, even with the popular councillors and the Raids revolt in 1921. They actually went to jail. And we did all of that without even one court engagement, actual court engagement. So the Khoodeelaar campaign is a unique campaign that should be treated as a template by the likes of the self-styled opponents of HS2. So we shall be closing this edition at 1 hour 34 minutes, and we shall continue on the issues as and when due course. So this time the time is, what is the time? 23:38 hours GMT on the Monday, the 24th of October 2022.